Hello everyone, it's Jean from Inky Studio. Today I am going to have a little adventure into some mixed media, and I'm not an expert, but let me tell you, anything that I'm attempting here, you can do. Even if you're faint of heart, you can have success with these techniques that I am using because as a newbie they turned out pretty good. And so today we're going to work on the cover of the Tim Holtz Accordion journal. And if you just joining us for the first time, I'm going to link down there part 1 to show you how I put the bones of the journal together. And then there's several parts after that to show how I'm decorating it and what I'm doing on the inside. So today we're going to make this cover, and we're also going to do a little photo sleeve in the back here. So I've already pre-recorded this, and I'm doing this with a voiceover and speeding up my technique so that you can view something that took a half hour within 10 minutes. That's a pretty good deal, huh? So we will talk to you at the end. I'm starting out with a frame made out of chipboard or cardboard. And I'm going to use some gesso here and a few drops of distress ink, just so that it's not white. Kind of want a beige shade on there. And I ended up putting 2 coats on this with drying it in between with a heat gun. And then I'm going to do a little bit of distressing. I've got some walnut ink and a brayer, and using this to kind of form splotches across the frame. I've done this before. I really like this technique. I'm also using some eucalyptus ink because it has sort of a green tinge to it. Trying to get off. There we go. Just you have to really experiment how much you want on here, so you need to use a brayer a few times just to kind of see how much you put on. And I was a little concerned about it being too dark or too much contrast, but it does dry quite light, so there was no need for concern. And I'm going to get gathered twigs, distressed ink, and go around the outer edge. And I'm going to get a second color, the vintage photo, and go around again, because sometimes using 2 different distress ink shades kind of adds to that aged antique look. Now this frame is a purchased frame, a chipboard, but you could make one out with a X-Acto knife yourself. Now I'm using some StazOn Timber Brown, and at first I was going to put individual stamps all around, but I decided to put everything on a block and kind of make my own collage on that block with my smaller stamps, and then just stamp around it and rotate it. And I found this to be a quick way just to get that variety on there and stamped out. And I changed out, I think, a few of the stamps as I went along. As you can see, that distressing with the brayer has dried quite light, much lighter than what it looked like it was going to, so I could have been even braver using it. Now I'm going to use a cutout from a photo and some more of Tim Holtz paper, but they're 6x6 size rather than the large sheet. And I'm going to put that as the background. Just going to glue along the outside edge all the way around. I know that Tim Holtz has recently put out what he calls portrait paper dolls, which is sort of like what I have there. It's more of a closer, rather than the whole paper doll, it's just more or less the head and face. But a paper doll would work too inside here. I just really like this woman's hat. I thought that was very fitting. Didn't tuck in as nicely as I thought it would because it's wet, but I got it in. So I like the dimensions on that. And here's how it's going to set on top of the cover. I did gather up some Tim Holtz fabric using, I think it's like letters or whatever. And then I decided to sew on some buttons because it just was a little too plain. So I got some vintage buttons on there. And just trying to figure out what to put down in the corner. I know I'd seen somebody use like just half of a butterfly wing, and I thought, well, that was interesting, but I don't know, didn't like that. I think the butterfly on the left was just really too big, too distracting from the photo, and ended up with that little beige one there. I liked him. So I noticed she has this feather in her hat, and I thought, you know what? I think I should put a feather there. So I really like that added texture there, something different. And I went ahead and off screen I put even a darker distress ink around the edge of it so the frame can stand out a little bit more. I'm going to make the frame into a pocket, so just going to glue the three sides down. And you can see in the upper left is the little file folder tag that's going to go inside that pocket. I also off camera spritzed some coffee, strong coffee onto the cloth to kind of distress it a little bit more. And we'll just glue it here on the side. I had pulled out some botanicals, but I think in the end I felt they'd be too much. So I'm gluing down the feather using the fabric tack, thinking that might be a better glue than the glitter glue, and putting down the label. And I'm a little off camera here, and I will correct it in a second. And adding, of course, the butterfly. There we go. Then I had to oh yes, that's the folder that's going to, or the tag that's going to go inside there. I chose a really dark shade so that it would stand out underneath the frame. I was going to put the label down, but then I decided that I would just give the recipient several labels to choose from rather than me put one down. I made a little dangle out of an authentic vintage key that's rusty from age, and a vintage piece of jewelry. And there she is. Now I'm going to be making something with this digital photo, and I'm using hanging folder, an old one that was falling apart. And I'm going to make a sleeve for the photo. So first score line is pretty much the length of the photo. Fold it down, and then the bottom I'll fold up to form a small pocket. Now you could make a matchbook out of this by putting a few staples at the very bottom. I thought that would be a cute idea, but I decided to do something different. And I remember seeing photo sleeves from my grandma's photo collection where the cover was nicely embossed. And so I thought, I'd like to kind of mimic that embossing. And so I have just a damask embossing folder, and I'm going to cut out the hole there with a die cut. Now, once you emboss paper, it does weaken it a bit, so I'm going to add another layer on the other side of it in order to strengthen that up. And if you don't have a die cut, you could use, just make a square with your X-Acto knife and cut out a square there. Now I did notice that there was a crease forming in the inside. Oh, I'm going to distress it with some walnut stain. And the walnut stain already has like a green cast to it, so I thought that would be really nice with this green file folder. And so yeah, there was a weak spot there that I decided to reinforce with some washi tape. I suppose it's an old file falling apart already, so maybe the newer ones wouldn't crease up that much. I don't know. There we go. Now I'm going to form a pocket here at the bottom. I love this color. I really think this such a great shade to go with Tim Holtz stuff. And I'm just going to go over it with a dry pad with a little bit of vintage photo. So here's a little closer look as to how that photo sleeve turned out, and I glued it in 3 sides so that there's a pocket here that I'll put some piece of ephemera there. And on the inside here, there's plenty of room, and I'm probably going to put in some more ephemera behind this here. And this will, I did mount this with cardstock so that it's pretty easy to write on the other side. So I just wanted to show you how I'm using that inside the journal. So I'm hoping this was very helpful for you, and please subscribe so that you can see the flip through of this. I am going to start another project here real soon, and probably even before I get this finished. This is one of those projects where I just work on it a little bit every day, and it just takes time to sit there and think about how I want to arrange stuff. But I am really loving this structure because the more I put into it, it just seems to expand, and I don't even see that I'm going to need to put any kind of a tie or anything with this. It just lays flat all by itself, and it sits up nice, and I just really like this, so I'm going to be doing this again for sure. So anyways, we will talk to you again real soon. Have a great and crafty day. Bye.